Oda just dropped one of the saddest chapters in One Piece. Kuma's past is up there with Law, Odin, or Sanji for the most tear-jerking backstory in the entire manga. All he wanted was to be free and help others find liberation, just like Sun God. But since birth, all Kuma had known was oppression, slavery, and discrimination just for the crime of being born a buccaneer. Then when he finally found some form of happiness after escaping the hell in God Valley, what does Oda do? He takes that ray of light, Ginny, shreds her to pieces, and ships it back like nothing happened.
You can't keep getting away with this!
However, it's not just Oda and the Celestials who were griefing Kuma. We gotta talk about Monkey D. Dragon. I know we just made a 40-minute video glazing this man, but these fraud allegations are starting to stack up now. So we're putting Dragon on trial later in the video to find out if he's actually as strong as people assume him to be. Before then, we gotta talk about Ginny, who is at the center of this entire storm. Turns out the enemy who captured her last chapter was the Navy, as she caught the eye of a celestial dragon who wanted her to be his bride. This was foreshadowed in 1097, where suitors would come to Ginny as she was the baddest baddie of them all. And for the first time, Kuma is pissed. Ever since Ginny was taken away, he hasn't been the same. Kuma recklessly jumps into any fray possible as if he has zero care for his life. Also, we get a hint at why the revolutionaries couldn't just go and rescue Ginny. They are in the middle of a huge turning point with revolutions instigated in all the seas, the impact of which cannot be understated, as it has caused the army to gain a reputation with the government. And with Ginny's forces completely wiped out, they are short on manpower to help all the countries at war. However, the people love the revolutionary army and fly Dragon's flag. As Kuma and the gang free more nations, 2 years pass by, and Ginny has escaped from the Celestials' clutches. Kuma and Ginny finally talk.
Let's go!
And she has a baby.
Yes!
Wait, stop. It's not Kuma's baby. She was with the Celestials for 2 years. That means she got R-worded. Bro, calm down. Also, she is sick and dying.
Yo, killing me with this!
This is a One Piece flashback. What were we expecting? Kuma, hearing Ginny's voice, immediately requests her location, but she says it's too late. This is her last call to them and says her final goodbyes. Kuma realizes the only place Ginny would visit in her final moments was the church they grew up in. So he teleports out the revolutionary ship instantly, which causes him to not hear Ginny's last words. I love you, Kuma. Due to her illness, Ginny's entire body was covered in pieces of stone, as she was exposed to natural sunlight while sailing across the world back to the Sorbet Kingdom. She suffered through this horrible fate just so her child Bonney could have a chance to live. As Kuma carries Ginny's dead, crippled body, he remembers all the good memories they had. Then, in his final goodbye, he asks her to rest easy, as he will raise Bonney as his own daughter. With the help of the citizens of Sorbet, Kuma managed to take care of Bonney, being there for her as the amazing father Bonney remembers him to be. He would still fight for the revolutionaries though, and then using his fruit, he would go back to the church and live with Bonney. A few years pass and Dragon saves Sabo from the explosion of his ship at Goa Kingdom, taking him under the revolutionaries' banner. This is where Sabo meets Kuma, who trains him to become a stronger fighter, giving a throwback to Sabo's intense hatreds towards the Celestials when he sees them mistreat Kuma as a servant. However, it's Kuma we are talking about here. Happiness does not last in this man's life. So, one morning, he notices a tiny piece of blue rock under Bonnie's eyes. Yep, she has the same disease that killed Ginny. This illness is so rare that not even the doctors can figure out what it is. In order to take care of Bonney better, Kuma leaves the revolutionaries, but he's unsure of this decision, whether he's doing the right thing or not. And then Dragon shows up, who, by the way, like all Dragon has done in his life is leave his family behind with Garp and Luffy, so he understands this plight and tells Kuma, it's okay, homie, you can leave. I don't want you to feel regret. Honestly, if I was in Kuma's position, the day I joined the revolutionaries would be the biggest regret of my life. All this misfortune that's happening, It's all cause Dragon said, trust me bro, you'll have no regrets. Well, that was a lie. But I am not Kuma, I am not him. And according to 18% of you guys on our poll, Dragon is not him either. So let us begin the fraud trials of Monkey D. Dragon. Exhibit A, Ginny. Dragon knew Ginny was captured. Since he was in the Marines, he knows where they would have taken her. He knew what was going to happen to her. Yet, he didn't do anything to help a fellow Nakama. This was one of your core commanders, the top brass of the army, and you just let her go that easily? What is wrong with you? Actions speak louder than words, and this shows a very cold side to Dragon where he's only driven by the goal of revolutionizing the world. But if everyone you care about is lost trying to achieve this goal, is it really worth it? I don't know, man. I think not. However, there is a defense for this. The revolutionary army was stretched very thin. Revolutions are long, arduous tasks which take years to change the mind of a nation. So in Dragon's head, sending his entire army to Marie-Joie when they are barely strong enough to overthrow smaller kingdoms at this point is like asking for a death wish. It wasn't time yet. Dragon and the revolutionaries are like a storm. If clouds give way early, then you will only have a drizzle and some small gusts of wind which won't even flip a few chairs. If you really want to turn the world upside down like Dragon, you need a mighty hurricane, which takes time to spin up. And that is exactly what Dragon does 14 years later during the Reverie, where we see the start of this storm. With one infiltration, Dragon crippled the Celestials by taking away their food supplies and making them look like clowns, as there were 0 casualties. This is Dragon's bargain. He forgoes protecting the ones close to him, does bring him immense pain, yet the greater goal will end up saving millions. Exhibit B, Dragon can't fight. So a lot of people in the community have had this sentiment, especially after seeing Kuma's flashback where we don't see Dragon lift a single finger. Even the Blackbeard pirates chasing Dragon out of Baltigo is brought up as a core point towards his fraud case. Blackbeard always runs away from a fight against a top dog. He yeeted out as soon as Shanks showed up at Marineford. He didn't want to hang with Akainu when he had captured Bonney during the time skip. Even recently, he gave up on capturing Boa as soon as he saw Rayleigh, a 70-plus-year-old man who is way past his prime, and he got scared of him. Yet, Blackbeard had the courage to storm the Revolutionary HQ and fight Dragon, making him leave this place they called home for decades. Does this mean Dragon's hype is nothing but air? No. Dragon and the Revolutionaries giving up their base at Baltigo doesn't prove Dragon is weak. Remember, the Revolutionaries are always scattered throughout the world. That's why they have commanders and battalions for each direction. Baltigo might be the HQ, but most of the strong fighters for them weren't even present there. Sabo, Koala, Hack were in Dressrosa, and the 4 captains were handling revolutions in seas across the world. So what was Dragon meant to do? 1v10 the entirety of the Blackbeard pirates? Not even Luffy could handle that. Furthermore, if he has been patient for decades in enacting his plan against the Celestials, why would Dragon weaken himself and his forces by fighting Blackbeard when they are weeks away from declaring war upon the government? Dragon isn't weak, nor is he a fraud. He has the blood of Garp running through his veins with the mythical god fruit Amaru. He is just a calculated man who sees the greater picture in things, so losing a few battles to win the war is par for the course. Which then brings us to Exhibit C. Dragon broke his promise to Kuma. Dragon told Kuma last chapter that he will take care of him. Kuma won't have any regrets by joining the Revolutionary Army, but all Kuma has felt since he joined is sadness. If he never joins Dragon, then Ginny is never spotted by a Celestial, thus getting captured. His happiness would still be intact. However, I think Dragon will fulfill his promise to Kuma. He couldn't keep his word to help Ginny 14 years ago. That's why when Kuma decided to leave the army, Dragon gave him his blessing. Even used his connections to find a top-tier doctor for Bonney's illness, showcasing that he does care. It's just that Dragon's ability to help was hindered by his cause to lift the most people in the world from oppression. But now, over a decade later, Dragon is at a different position. The war of the revolutionaries against the government is full on. They are stronger than ever, and in chapter 1100, Dragon will keep his promise to Kuma so he can pummel Saturn J. Garcia's face with his own fist for giving Bonney and Ginny this horrific illness and enslaving Kuma. With the doctor's Dragon brought to Bonney, they give a diagnosis saying that the disease Bonney has is called sapphire scale, which causes your body to turn turn into blue sapphire-like jewels when it comes in contact with sunlight. It's apparently a rare and old illness which isn't seen anywhere. So Ginny catching it in Marie-Joie with all these immortal old-ass Gorosei running around would make a lot of sense, especially since we know that Saturn's mythical zone is the Ushioni model Gyuki, where one of its prime powers is to spread illness through its venom. Furthermore, Sapphire is known as the Stone of Saturn, which means that it's very likely Ginny got Sapphire sickness from Saturn J. Garcia. That's why he's an egghead. It's even a possibility that Buddha Saturn was clapping Ginny's cheeks and is the reason for his familiarity with Bonney. However, a consequence of this elopement was that he spread his Sapphire STD upon them. The scar on his head could also be from them removing Sapphire gems from his body after the illness was cured like 800 years ago. However, this illness of Bonney made her lead an isolated life. She would spend a lot of time reading and fantasizing about visiting various parts of the world, one of which is the legendary Sky Islands. She says that because of how close it is to the sun, they might be able to see Nico. Also, this story of Sky Island she's reading comes from the Bible book Kuma is always holding on to, furthering our theory about Imudi Judas and Joy Boy the Jesus. The doctor then tells Kuma bluntly that Bonney is going to die by the time of her 10th birthday. Before this, they had been whispering so as to not wake Bonney up, but hearing that her daughter is going to die in a measly 5 more years shocks Kuma so much that he accidentally blurts out what was said by the doctor. Heading inside, thinking that it's not fair that Bonney would have her future robbed from her, Bonney gives Kuma a scare because he thought she was asleep, but she claims that she heard it all. Bonney had misinterpreted thinking that her disease would pass once she's 10 years old, and Kuma simply doesn't have the heart to tell her that she's going to die in a mere 5 years. But this gives her false hope that once she turns 10, she will be cured and that she can finally live out her life as normal. As if that wasn't enough, the former King Bekuri returns a year later to the Sorbet Kingdom and is planning on burning people in their homes. However, an important reveal this chapter was another piece of the ancient kingdom puzzle. The church Kuma is praying at has this 8-circled sun, which is also present in the flags of Alabasta, the Kozuki crest, tattoo on Neptune, all of those guys. Perhaps each of these 8 circles are 8 families or clans who helped Joy Boy 800 years ago and carry his will up until this day alongside Kuma in the Buccaneer race. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to watch the video on screen right now because that's another banger.